I followed the entire trial. I have a spiral notebook filled with notes, watching every day of the trial. I thought the roles were kind of flipped here in this trial. I thought you were the prosecution proving your case, and it seems to me that you proved your client innocent. Listening to what several members of the jury who have given interviews are saying, that's exactly what they're saying. They're not saying not guilty. They're saying innocent. You proved that she did not commit this crime. And my hat's off to you, because it seemed like this trial was upside down and backwards.
At first, for me, I thought Karen Reed was actually maybe guilty of manslaughter in the beginning, but as the weeks passed by, I just realized there was too many holes that we couldn't fill, and there's nothing that put her on the scene, in our opinion, besides just drop John O'Keefe off. And the taillight, the injuries in his arm didn't make much sense that come from the taillight for us. The last witness, Arca, from the defense, that made clear, they did a very good job. We couldn't prove there was a collision and she was responsible for John's death.
Are you convinced she wasn't responsible for his death?
I am convinced. I'm 100% convinced.
So what do you think happened to him?
In my opinion, he definitely went inside and something happened inside the house.
Well, there's no doubt that there were a lot of unique aspects of this trial. You hit the nail on the head. We all know the presumption of innocence and that it's the prosecution's duty to prove their case and every element of it beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. We viewed our role as assisting the jury, providing expert, honest facts and other evidence to the jury. So our Karen Reed was innocent, she is innocent, and we knew from the pre-trial that with regard to this prosecution that we were going to have to do things a little bit differently than perhaps most to get that point across. And so we never took on the burden. We were very careful to not shift burden, but we knew there were several unique aspects of this, and we believe we had the best experts, we had the best facts, and we had the best evidence, and we're delighted that the jury concluded that, and hopefully the broader community that we so much respect and appreciate their support, they concluded that as well.
It was a cluster F. The bottom line is you guys went out there and you broke it down for this second jury, the second time around. You did, and they spoke, and they spoke loud and clear after 4 days.
This jury member in the Karen Reed retrial says she'll never forget this sound. The crowd outside the courthouse in Dedham last Wednesday erupting after the verdict.
It was overwhelming. There was so much grief and so much joy in that moment. I really felt the weight of everything that we had done that day. Everybody in that room was very smart and very committed to telling their story and their version of the story, which more than anything led me to walk into that jury room with no opinion. We started making a lot more progress when I got like huge poster board paper and then worked with other members of the jury to write down the definition of every charge.
Everything is supposed to be about achieving justice for the people of this community. Okay. And what I saw here and what really got my goat is an injustice being perpetrated by the people that were sworn oath to serve and protect us, whether it was law enforcement or the prosecutor. In this case, it seemed to be both. Science doesn't take sides. It is what it is. It's either right or it's wrong.
Commonwealth and the investigators didn't do their jobs to prove that to us. So we couldn't charge her with anything. And I really, really hope there is a way for the case to be reopened and they can investigate again and find who actually did that to John.
Was it a poor investigation?
In my opinion, yes. Too many flaws, too many holes that we couldn't fill in. No reports, so many things, videos with clinch. I don't know, felt a little not correct, not precise. I mean, they are police officers, they know what to do in investigation, and with too many pieces were missing.
In a statement this morning, Brennan expressed his disappointment in the verdict and not achieving justice for John O'Keefe and his family. Brennan went on to say in part, quote, "After an independent and thorough review of all of the evidence, I concluded that the evidence led to one person and one person only. Neither the closed federal investigation nor my independent review led me to identify any other possible suspect or person responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. The campaign of intimidation and abuse that has been waged, funded, and promoted in public and on social media is the antithesis of justice. If this type of conduct becomes commonplace, it will threaten the integrity of our judicial system, affecting both victims and criminally accused."
In terms of Attorney Brennan, in terms of the proceedings, my general perspective in any matter, but particularly this one, was we had to take whatever was in front of us and get the job done. We fought everything, as you stated, with zeal, a lot of preparation. There were a lot of things that were coming at us, sometimes right on the spot, the hoodie sweatshirt, and we responded. The best way, from my point of view, is to anticipate the bad bounce, so to speak, and just make sure that you're ready and pounce as soon as you need to. In this case, maybe more than any that I've been involved in, you had to invoke those skills and have that mindset. We knew what was just. These charges were unjust. They proved to be unjust and unwarranted, but nonetheless, that's what was in front of us. And so we had to move ahead and knock down anything that got in our way and in the way of the objective here in terms of the matter. And I will add to your excellent point about the worldwide community, and David can speak more to this. I've coined the phrase, everybody loves Yannetti, and everybody does love Yannetti. So he can speak perhaps more aptly to that. But that community support, that motivated us, it exhilarated us, and gave us all the more zeal. And that was very, very important to us.
So you mentioned that it seemed to be personal to us. And that's a smart observation. And I think, what contributed to it was the fact that this had gone on for 3.5 years. I mean, I spent just about as much time working this case as I did going to college. This is another chapter in my life. And for much of that time, the legal team and Karen, we were all living together in the same hotel. It was 24/7 preparation, eating, and sleeping. And sometimes Bob and I would sneak away to the gym, but we were all in it together, and it was very personal. After the first mistrial, the district attorney came out with a statement essentially saying that he was going to continue to try to convict Karen Read no matter how long it took. So, immediately after the verdict, I was thinking all along, particularly with the way the case went in, that we were not going to lose. I could not envision a scenario where this jury convicted her of anything more serious than misdemeanor first offense DUI. I just couldn't. I couldn't envision that. Of course, when they're reading the verdict slip, I'm braced for the worst, and it's just an irrational, fear and an irrational few moments when you're so thirsting for that not guilty verdict. But immediately after the trial, I gave an interview and said that the thing I was most afraid of was another mistrial, because it's been exhausting, it's been draining. We gave it everything that we had, and I was very fearful that he would make good on his promise to put her through this again. So it was just a huge relief.
You saw the emotion in court, and there was many people who speculated that you were praying or what you were doing with your eyes closed, but you could see the emotion come over you after it was all said and done. And then you did something that was so interesting, is you looked around and you grabbed this guy to your right, and you picked him up and hugged him, Bob, right?
It sure did.
I still laugh about that. I just was, I was not in control of my emotions. I didn't want to be the guy that cried at counsel table. I mean, have my client console me. You could see her like patting my neck, and then she had to hug me as I'm like wiping tears out of my eyes. It was a big time emotional moment. With the number of cases that you guys have handled, I know that it's been personal for you a lot of the time. And, I worked in law enforcement for 10 years, and I know that, when you're dealing with, a victim's family, particularly with regard to a homicide, you do not want to fail them. And I'm sure that you had similar emotions, and that probably you hearken back to that when you could see me overcome with emotions, So, yeah, I went from, tears to like elation. Bob's become one of my best friends, and I wanted to pick him up and throw him in the air like I would when my kids were little, So
yeah, that was great. Are you still on that rush? Are you still on that high? The adrenaline still pumping that you got this great victory for your client?
Yeah, I mean, it's this sort of YouTube tour that we're doing has been very therapeutic for me. It's almost like a baseball. I don't want to make a crass analogy, but a baseball team that wins the championship, and they're in the locker room every day with their brother ball players, and what a high it is. And it's despite the fact that they're going back to their families, it's got to be a little bit of a letdown. So this, these appearances that we're doing, and thank you again for having us on the show tonight. I can't speak for Bob, but it's allowing me to kind of process this, and I've been in court, a few different courts, since the verdict, and it's, we're so insulated during the trial. We're kept, from all the publicity, and we're focusing on the job at hand. And I'm starting to realize now just how big it was, because people are, recognizing me in the courthouse and all, and 99% of the people that approach me are all supportive. So it's been very gratifying.
It seemed to me that the videos that we could see from the car after the alleged incident happened, that when we could see the taillight, it was lit up red where it shouldn't just have been red.
And I was so disgusted that everybody lost sight of the initial crime here, which is, and that's a cop lost his life. And they tried to go the easy way out and dump it on somebody who didn't have a good recollection of what happened. It was plain for everybody to see that.
Collectively together, we looked at all the evidence that we was presented with, and we made our decision off of that. We didn't, at first, some had their own personal opinions on what the case should be or whatever, and was trying to go down like a personal feelings and stuff like that, and we had to stick to what evidence we had in front of us and go with that. So it was more or less just trying to figure out that part, and it took us a couple of days to really get the gears going, but when we did, it was smooth trails. The whole case all together, all the pieces, testimony, witnesses, and it just a lot together. And people had questions. We used the evidence to answer their questions, and we didn't try to go down these rabbit holes where we're just getting lost in what all these other things that was thrown at us in court or whatever, and we just had to lock down and figure it out through the evidence.
I wouldn't want to go up against these guys. They're very good. They're very good, and you have a great tag team. Between all the defense attorneys, I thought it was outstanding. But I'll tell you right now, they should be ashamed of themselves. And I disagree. I don't think this is the end of this. I think they left the door open for a next inquiry. And there's a lot of answers that still, questions that still haven't been answered. And everybody wants those answers. What really did happen?